Now that we are done with our server, we then need to move on to the client part of our application. So now I'm going to go back to the terminal. And if you look at the terminal, I am in the foodie folder here in my desktop. So this is my desktop, and then this is the folder that contains our backend. So if I say ls now to list the files there, you see our backend. Now I'm going to create another folder there by saying mkdir. I'm going to call it frontend. So it's going to contain our frontend application. So I'm going to use enter. Now, so if I say ls again, I'm going to have two folders now, backend and frontend. So I'm going to go into the frontend, which is where it's going to contain everything that we have to do with our client side of the application. So I'm going to say cd to frontend. Now let me clear. Now I'm in the frontend, and if I do ls, there's no folder here. Now I'm going to use Vite to bootstrap a React application for us here, instead of setting up React from scratch. So I'm going to say yarn. You don't have to install anything. Once you have yarn, you're fine. So just say yarn create Vite, and then you hit enter. Yeah, that's all. You can pass the project name. So I can say /, which simply means that the current directory, which is the front end, that is the project I'm using. Or you can hit enter, and then later Vite is going to ask you what is the project name. You can give it a name, or you can still type the same thing here. But for now, I'm just going to say period / or /, which simply means the current directory I'm in. So let's go. All right. So Vite is asking me what framework am I using. So am I using vanilla, Vue, or whatever? So I'm just going to go to React and hit enter. Am I using TypeScript? Yes. And then I have my Vite, my React project with Vite created for me. Now I need to run yarn, which simply means yarn install. So let me clear. So I'm saying yarn. This is going to install all the applications from npm registry for me. Okay, so now that this is done installing, the next thing is to open up. But what I want to do is I want to open up in VS Code first. I'm going to say code period, which simply means open this folder in VS Code. So it opened up in VS Code here. Let me go back to the terminal and clear again once more. I want to run yarn dev, which is the package JSON to scripts that would start the application in development. So I have my server running in localhost 5173. I'm just going to copy that and go to my browser. I'm just going to copy that, then go to the browser. I'm going to paste it here and then remove local, hit enter, and right away I see a React Vite application here for me. Let me zoom out a bit. Seems I'm zoomed in too much. Yeah, I have a React application here, and if I click here, it's counting upwards. All right, so with this now we have a React application bootstrapped, very easy. Let's go back to the VS Code itself and let's look at what we have. So we have a package JSON with some scripts, about 3 scripts here. We have our dependency, React and React DOM. Then we have the dev dependencies, TypeScript, feeds, and the rest of them. Now you can set up ESLint and Predia, but I'm not going to do that. I already showed you how to do that in the previous video. So if you want to learn how to do that, please go watch the previous video and you see how to set it up. All right, so let's go to the source file, and we have the assets, the app.css, the app.csx, which just contains what we are seeing here currently right now. Then we have some other files: gitignore, index.html, and then TypeScript configuration with fit configuration. All right, first of all, let's clean up the index. Let's start from the index.ts. So I'm going to just clean up everything here. I don't need any of them. I won't be needing the CSS. I'm just going to take out all these things. I won't be needing the state. I don't think I need this app too, so I'll just take that out. I'll leave these ones like this for now. Probably I might use them later. And then I'll go to the index.css. I'll just delete that. So I'm going to right click, select, and click on delete, and then move to recycle bin, I guess. Then my main.tsx, which is the main right here, I'll leave it as it is. I'll go to the index.css. I don't need any of this. I'm going to remove it. I'll just remove everything. I'll come back to add what I want here. So the index.css is empty. And then I'll go to the assets folder and I'll delete this that logo. Okay, so I think I've cleaned up what let me go to the public. I have the Vite logo. I will remove it. I'll add my own later. So I've cleaned up the whole source folder and the public folder. If I go to the index, there's nothing. I can change the title to say foodie. That's the name of application, and I will just leave it like this. So with this now, I've cleared up the whole thing here. And apart from, I will come back to change this. This is going to be not right now because I've removed this vite.svg. I'll come back to that. So if I take a look at our application now, we have nothing showing because we've removed everything there. But if I go back and let's say go to the source folder, go to the app.tsx, and I say I have a h2, and I just say hello. If I save now, we should see hello in the browser, and then we see hello. So this simply signifies that our deletion has been successful and our setup is successful, and we can start working with our React application. Now, I'm going to use a UI library to make our styling fast. So instead of creating different files and all that for CSS, we're going to use a UI library. So what UI library are we going to use here? It's simply going to be Tailwind CSS. So let's quickly go to the Tailwind docs. So if I go back here, type Tailwind. So we are right here in Tailwind CSS. Because we are using Vite, please let's just type Vite here. So that it shows us how to install Tailwind CSS with Vite. And then if you look at the documentation, these are the things we need to do. We need to install Tailwind CSS as a dev dependency, post CSS, and also auto prefixer. We have already done this before. That was the initial set of application. So I'm just going to copy all this because I'm using yarn. I copy. So by right click on copy, then go back here. I'm going to kill the terminal here so that I can use here. I'll clear. Then I'm going to run yarn add, and I'm going to right clicking, simply paste what I copied here. So yarn add -d tailwind CSS post CSS auto prefixer, and I hit enter. All right, I'm going to clear this. Then let's go back to the doc, and we have, if we move further, the next line we are going to run npx tailwind CSS init -p. So this is going to create let's the terminal. This is going to create Tailwind configuration and I think one other configuration like that. So if I hit enter now, after putting this, then it has created two files for us: Tailwind CSS config files and post CSS config files. Let's go back to the document again, documentation, and in the Tailwind CSS we can add this to the content. Let's just copy this. So make sure we are just following the documentation. The documentation, let's go to our source. Outside of the source folder in the top directory, you'll find two files now: tailwind.config.cjs and postcss.config.cjs. We're going to click on the Tailwind, and then we're going to replace this content here. Let me zoom in a bit. We're going to replace this content here with what we copied. So I've pasted that here. So this is where with our Tailwind files, we need our Tailwind CSS to actually go take effect. Then we have the extend and the plugins. Let's see what we can extend. Okay, let's scroll down a bit. Okay, for now, we'll come back to look at what we can extend. So let's just copy this and go paste it in the index.css. So I'm going to hover on this. I just click here to copy. So I highlight this, right click, select and copy. Then let's go to the index.css, which we'll find in the source folder, index.css, and let's paste this. So this is the let me scroll up. This is the with base classes, the component classes, and then the utilities. All right. Anything you want about Tailwind, you can just go back to the Tailwind documentation to find. Now, if I'm going to write this Tailwind a bit faster than usual, so if you are new to Tailwind CSS, I have a course on Tailwind CSS that you can take. I'll put a link to it on the top right corner of this video, and then in the description, the video description, and then you can go watch it to learn more about Tailwind and also take a course that is a bit slower on Tailwind. Then moving on, what else do we need to do? Let's go to the Tailwind docs again and let's type screens. Just type screens in the search bar, the modal that comes up, customizing screens. And then we're just going to copy everything here in the theme. Can we just copy the theme? Let's just copy it like this. And let's go back to our VS Code. Let's go back to the, let me scroll down a bit. Let's go back to Tailwind configuration. And right here inside this extend here, let's paste that, everything we copied. So let me shrink a bit. Let me close this guy up. I will clean up this one by removing all this. So I'm done with the cleanup here. One other thing I want to add is the font family. So I'm going to go down here right after the screens. I'm going to paste this, which is my font family. So this is Sans Francis, and then this is Sheriff. And then I need to actually import this font family from fonts.google.com, which I'm going to have here. So I'll go back to my browser. I'm going to type fonts.google.com. Let me zoom in a bit. So I'm going to, you can just type Google Fonts and that will come up, fonts.google.com. So I'm going to type Francis. So you can also type the same thing with me. So, and then this is it here, Francis, which is the font family I want to use. Yeah, so what do I have? I'm going to click on it. And then I'm going to select some of them that I will be using. I'm going to click on regular 400. I'll click on, can you close this one? Let me decrease this, please, so I can click on 500, click on semi-boost 100, click on 700. I will also click on 800. I don't even know if I'm going to use all of them. I will stop here. And then when I go back here, I'm going to click on imports. I'm not going to put it as a link. And I will just copy right before the style. I'll copy everything there. And then I'll go back to the VS Code. Right before my Tailwind, I'm going to paste this. So I'm importing that Google fonts there. So with this now, my application will be using the Google fonts, Francis, with all the font sizes I selected. And then I already configured it here, so I don't need to go and say body, font family, font weight, and all that. I already configured it right here in my Tailwind configuration. So with this being out of the way, what do we want to do? I'm going to close this. I think this is all we are going to do here for now. And then I'll close my Tailwind too. And then I'll close the index.html. And right now I'm just here in my app.tsx. So what do I want to do here? Let me open this up. What do we want to do? So this is the live application that we are trying to build. Let me go back here. This is the live application. Now this is just like a landing page or a home page, but straight off from our home page, you can log into the application by putting your email and your password. Apart from that, whether you have your email already or your password already in the database, if you just come here and you click on login, then we log you in. If you're already registered, we log you in. Remember our server. If you are not registered already, we still log you in. So we don't need to have two forms. We have a single form here with an input, two input field, your email and your password. And we have a name, then we have a background image. So now I'm going to be using React Router DOM for our routing. So let's quickly set that up. Then we can come back to build this landing page or login page or registration page, whichever one you want to call it. Now you can decide on your own to create separate landing page. That is fine. And then you have your login and sign up button. It's still fine. But for me, this is enough. So let's go back and install React Router DOM. So I'm going to say yarn add react-router-DOM. We are using it to handle navigation. Now we also need to install the types. So we go see yarn add -d add types /react-router-DOM. So these are the types for React Router DOM. Remember how we did it in our server. Most of the application we installed types for them. So we are done installing. Let me clear. And let's start the application again by typing yarn dev. It's going to start up. Let's go back to the VS Code here. Now we have this is just our app.jsx here. And we are going to have all our routing done inside the app.csx, I mean. All right, so how do we set up React Router DOM? Now, there are many ways to use React Router DOM. I'm just going to use one of the methods to set this up. So this is not like, oh, this must be like this must be like that. If I don't see this way, then it's not working. No, this is just how I want to set it up for this particular application. So there are many other ways to set up React Router DOM for routing application. So if you want to find out more about React Router DOM, just go to reactrouter.com, and then you can see you can click on tutorials, and they will show you how to use React Router DOM. So the method I'm going to use in this application is what they actually shows here on their tutorial. But there are other ways that you can connect React Router DOM. So if I scroll down on my left panel here, you can see different ways here: create browser router, router provider, memory, whatever. I'm going to be using create browser router and this router provider, and these are new features that were added. So in you have also these ones here. You can just take a look at reactrouter.com and then see documentation for all this. So I'm going to be using create browser router and router DOM. So browser router is this, when you see all this slash this slash, maybe you say google.com/login or /register. Then we have the one they call hash router, where you usually see a hash symbol or a pound symbol before a maybe a link or before a title or whatever, maybe google.com/hash or hash whatever login or so. So I'm going to be using, like I mentioned, create browser router and router provider. They are both new, so I want to explore it with you. All right, so right here, I'm going to import. Let me close this up. I'm importing create browser router and router provider from react-router-dom. So I've imported those two new packages from React Router DOM. And how do we use these packages here? So right here in our app component, we're going to create router. So say const router, which is equals to create browser router. And then now what we're simply doing is we are passing an array of objects to create browser router. And each of these array of objects you are passing are different routes with their configurations. So that is how we use this new way in create browser router. So we pass in this array of objects here, and then later we will render it here. Now, what does this look like? This array of objects, what does it look like? We create an object that has a path, which simply is where is it going to? Where is this route going to? And then we have what we call the elements. What elements are you going to render here? Let's just say, let's render a div that says landing page. And then there's another thing which React Router calls the error elements, which is if there's an error in this particular route, they will throw this error for you. If you don't provide an error element, React Router DOM already has an error element that they have, generic error element that they will just throw to you if an error occurs. So it's for you yourself to create your own error elements that you pass to them to show, unless you want your users to be seeing the error element from React Router DOM. So let's just create another div again, and let's just say error page also. So with this now, we have created a single route which is mapped to slash, and the element that will display when you go to the path slash is this landing page, and then we have the error element. So how do we exactly render this here for our application to use? That is where the router provider come in place. Now we're going to wrap this in a React suspense. So I'm going to say suspense. And for our suspense, we need to provide a fallback. And for now, we'll just provide a div that simply says loading, loading. And then how do we use the router element here? The router provider, I mean. So we say router provider. Let me close this up now. And it's going to take in some props. We say router. And the router we are going to pass in is this router here. So we're going to say router. And then we can also provide a fallback element in case something goes wrong. So we provide a fallback element. And we will do the same thing that we did for our suspense. I will say div, and we'll just say fallback element. So I guess this is when we can't find our route. We'll test it out to see. So let's make sure to import suspense from React is a named component. Make sure to import that. Now, this simply means that if we go to slash, then we should get a landing page as the element, and then if an error occurs, we should get this as the error that will come. So let me pull up our server. Let's go back here. Okay, it's up already. Let's go to browser. Let's go here, and now you see we have landing page. So we are in slash, which is the index, and we have landing page. So if I were to change that to slash login, we should probably get this fallback element, or I think we should get fallback element because the route doesn't exist instead of the error element. So let's take a look. If I save now, our server is up. Let's take a look. Woo! We have the 404 unexpected application error 404 not. Oh, so this is the error element that um, React Router DOM provides for you. This is the error element they provide for us. So if we do not customize that, we will get this. But I think we customized ours. I'm wondering why we do not have our error showing here other than this that we have right now. So let me take a look. I think why our error element is not rendering is because the error element is for the slash login, not for the index. And what we have in here is slash login. So the error element doesn't show. So let's check the slash login itself. So let's say slash login. So we should have the landing page. So if I hit enter, we now have landing page. So you can see that once we change it from here, that becomes, so let's pretend that we don't have an error element. Let's see if the fallback element will show. So we should see something like fallback elements in the browser. Does it show anything? It doesn't show anything. Wow. Well, I just tested that out right now, so don't really know the behavior it should have. Probably I'll have to go read the documentation and find out what's going to happen if we can't find that. But with that being said, we now have a landing page back, but we don't want, that is not our login page. We just want it to go to the index, which is just slash here. So with this now, this is how we now pass in more. You can also create nested elements, but we'll get to that. We will do nested elements. We'll get to that. So let's first of all deal with our landing page. So I'm going to go back here. We'll come back to deal with this loading state and all that. I'm going to go back to here, and I'm going to right inside my source folder. Inside the source folder, I'm going to right click. I click on new folder, and we call it pages. So this is where our pages will live. This is our pages directory, and we're going to have a page. Click on pages and right click, and we'll call this page landing. This is a folder, it's landing. Now obviously we have just a landing page, single landing page, so I'm just going to have an index.ts there. That's all. So just like we did in our server, what we usually do is we create a folder, then we export everything in that folder in the index and then push it out. So in this case now, we just have one file, so I don't want to create another whatever and call it another name, then later export it in the index. So I'm just going to say, let me create a file here. So I'm going to click on the landing itself, right click, click on new file, and let's call it index.ts. TSX, please make sure it has TSX, and then I save. I hit enter, I mean. So what do we want to have here? We're going to say, let's create our page, export const landing is going to be an arrow function, and for now it's going to return null. So let's go and use it here. I'm going to go back here, and I'm going to import the landing. So we're going to say import landing from pages slash landing, and I'm going to say that that will be my element. If you go to the forward slash, so I'm going to say landing. So I've passed this component, this page here. So when each time you go to the slash, the index route, you get the landing page. But going back to the landing page, if I go back to the index.ts here, what do we want to actually have here? So let's take a look at what the finished product. We want to have a form that takes in email and password. We have this name here, like a logo. And then we have this image here. So what we have is we have a screen that is split into two. One half is an image, one half contains a form. Now, first of all, let's split this screen into two, and let's have an image here. So let's go on, let's go to here, and then we're going to start here with our Tailwind classes. So we're going to have a div. Let me close this up, save this, So we have a div. I think this is too zoomed out too much. Yeah. So we have a single div here now. That has a class of container, which simply means that I want it to take the whole width, and it has a background color of black, it has a text color of white, and a height of 100%. And then it is display flex. Flex direction is column, reverse, and then on a medium screen, the flex direction is row, and the width is full, generally everywhere. So, like I said earlier, if you don't understand what this is, please go take my other course. You would learn what it is. But these are just Tailwind classes that we're using here. I don't want to waste our time with the styling by explaining everything that is going on here. If you don't understand, just go back to the Tailwind course, where the Tailwind CSS guideline or documentation, and just type in whatever we are using. So we used container earlier. You can just go type container and then click on search. Then they will explain everything for you. That is there. So yeah, that's, I guess that will be better so that we don't take up the whole time explaining styling instead of building the application itself. All right, so we now have this. We are going to have two divs here. So I'm going to have a single div, the first div, and then a second div. So the first div will contain the form. The second div will contain the image. So let's deal with the image first. Well, let's make sure that this takes up the whole width. I'm going to say width of full, which simply means width of 100%. And also a height of full, which simply means height of 100%. So I want to take up everything. The same thing applies to this one too. So I'm going to say class name of width dash full, height dash full. So this will make sure that takes up the whole thing. So what do we want to do? Let's import an image. I have gone ahead. If you go to the assets now, I've added 3 images here: recipe-1, recipe-3, recipe-2. So we'll be using these images now from the asset folder. So let's import the first image. So we're going to say import. Let's call it recipe-1 from what's it called? Dot slash assets slash what do you call recipe dash 1 dot png. So if you're looking for, oh, didn't spell is correct, png, can't spell png. All right, so if you want to get these images, you can just go to, so if you want to get these images in your local drive, you can just go to github.com slash ikechukwu dash peter slash foodie, and then click on front end, click on source, then click on assets, and then you have these images here, so you can use them just like as I am using them now. So let's go back to, we have our error page showing. What's wrong? Let's take a look at app.tsx. So what's wrong? I can't say right now, but we'll get back to that. Probably we'll have an error. Probably, we don't know yet. All right, so we have our recipe 1 imported. Yes, let's go to here and use it. So we're going to have an image tag, and the source is going to be recipe 1. And we have an auth tag simply called a dish with food recipes, and then the class name with some Tailwind classes, which simply says width of full, height of full, object position is center, and then we have object size to be object fitting, which is cover. Think background size if you're using CSS background and all that. All right, so we now have this. Let's take a look if what we have is actually showing on the page. Okay, we have an error with the importing of our image file. Let's take a look at the image file. So the image is in assets. Okay, it is JPG, not PNG. So I have to change this to JPG. My bad. And I save now. And then let's take a look. Okay, we have the error page showing instead of the page itself. Oh. Supposed to be in slash, not slash login. So let me take a look. Now the error page is showing. Let me see. And it is this error element here. It simply says error page. So we don't have that page, and then it threw this error for us, error page. So if assuming we don't have that, then what's it called? React DOM would have thrown their own error that we saw earlier before. But because we have this, then it threw what we have here to the user. So let's remove this one and change it to slash, and then we have this. Now this is not what I want. I want it to take up the whole width of the browser, even though I already have the screen split. The image is here, The other background color black is here, but I need it to take up the whole width. So let's go take a look at what could be wrong. So one thing I want us to do is let's go back to the app.tsx and let's actually give this guy some classes. So we're going to say width of container. Container, which simply means if you hover on it, you see width 100%, some max width and min width and other. And then we want to say that the width. Remember, if you put w dash then this square bracket, it means we want to use our custom styling here. So I'm going to say 100 vertical width, and then the height should be 100 vertical height. So I want to take everything. So if I save now, I will take a look at our browser. If I refresh this, oh, nothing happens. Why? Let's go take a look again. Okay. Oh, I didn't close this one up, so I need to close this. Let me close this now. So I hope that I didn't close this before. Let's save. Let's take a look again. Boom. So it covers the whole thing. Now this is nice, but one thing is I don't like how this is showing. I want to add a little saturation to make it look nice. So I'm going to go back and I'll go to the image index.tsx in the landing page. I'm going to go to this div here. I'm going to say saturate of 200. So if I save now, the image should look a bit better. Now you see there's this lightning on the image, and I like how it look now. So I think that's nice. All right, now this is what we have. Let me what's it called? Inspect this. Okay, and it looked nice on mobile screen too. So on mobile screen, we kind of said it should be flex direction column, and it should be reversed. So we brought the image at the top there, at the top, and then we put the text down. Then on live screen, flex direction should be column. So that very easy with Tailwind CSS. You didn't even notice that. So what we have to do now is just to add our form, and everything works fine for our landing page. So let's go back. Now, first of all, before I start working on the form, I want to create 2 or 3 components. The form component, if I look at the original, what we are trying to build here, we have the input component, we have the what's it called, button component. So we have the input and the button component, and I believe this is a form, so we also have a form component. So let's go back and create these components. So I go to here and I go to my source now. I'm going to create a folder called components. I have components. Now right here, I'm going to create, let me start with the form component since it's the first, the container form. I'm going to call it form.tsx. And then immediately, just like I did during the backend, I'm going to create an index.ts where we export everything. So in the form.tsx, what do we want to have here? Export const form. I love name components. And then I will go back to that. And we're going to say return. Since it's a form, we're just returning a form and some other props that will pass. So what are we going to pass to our form component? What props is our form component exporting? Accepting. Our form component is simply a HTML form, but we just want to, do the React thing and create a form component that we can reuse anywhere in our application. So let's say that our form component is going to accept, first of all, it's going to accept on submit. So the on submit prop, where you say on submit, do something. What else are we going to accept? Children, which are just going to be React elements. We're going to accept children. One other thing we need to accept is class name. So class name is going to be the style that you pass here. So what we are doing is we're accepting an unsubmit function. The children are React elements or React nodes that you pass, anything you pass, string, null, divs, whatever. And then we're accepting class name. Class names are the styling that you pass. And what do we want to do here? We're going to say that the form unsubmit itself should take in the unsubmit that you pass, and submit that you pass, and then the class name for the styling should take in, first of all, it should take in whatever we want to pass. So that's why we are using string literals. So whatever CSS we want to pass here from our Tailwind class, we can pass, but for me I don't have anything. So whatever we have passed, then whatever the user has passed here. But for me I don't have any styling to pass here, so I'll leave that. Then in between these tags, we are going to render the children that we pass. So the children can be input fields. Let me bring this down. It can be whatever. Now, that is that. One other thing we need to do is to declare the types for this. Since this is what should I call this? A TypeScript application. Let's quickly go here and let's create a type right here. I don't want to create a file to do that. So I'm going to say that the unsubmit is going to be what type is going to take an event, and which is going to be a form event. Form event is exported from React itself. And what kind of form event is going to be? Is that going to be HTML form element? And then what is it going to return? It's going to return nothing, so we say void. Now we need to declare types for the other ones. The children, what type are the children going to be? They are going to be of type React Node, and that's also exported from React itself. And then the class name is just going to be a string of classes. It's going to be optional, so that if you don't pass it, it doesn't throw an error for us, and it's going to be a string of all the classes that the user has defined that are going to use. So with this now, our form component is done, and we can now create form component using this. One other component we need to create from what you saw there is the input component. So let's go back to the source of the components folder, and let's right click on new file. Let's call it input.csx. So we say export const input, so we are exporting an input component, and then I'll come back to that. I'll say for now return an input field, return an input field for us. So it's just an input field, HTML input field, but we're going to brand it with our own things to make it powerful, not just an ordinary input field. So let me just go back to the form and say something about it. This form is what we call React composition. With the way we built the form is what they call React composition. So with this now, we can pass as many elements as we want in this form here, and it's going to accept that. But what we are doing here, we're going to create a simple component. You can't pass any elements to this input component here. So when I say elements, I mean like children, like other, probably you want to pass a span tag or HTML, other HTML tags. But for our form, you can pass in input, you can pass in divs and whatever because of the React composition here. So you can read up on React composition if you don't understand what I'm talking about. All right, so right here, we are going to accept type. Input has a type. Is it of type of text? Is it of file? Is it of, what else do we have? Think range. Do we have color? Think color. So we have dates. Yeah, I know we have dates. And then we have, I don't know. Let's just go on. So, and then input has placeholder. So we're going to accept a placeholder from you. What else are we accepting? We are going to accept a handle change, which is going to be called when the input is, so when you type something in input on change. We are going to accept class name, which is the same thing as the class name you accepted for the form, whatever styling you want to pass there. We're also going to accept any other thing. So we say dot rest, we spread it. Any other thing that you pass to the input component, we're just going to take that. So for here, let's quickly create the type before we go there. So I'm going to, so these are the types I'll be using. Let me bring this down. Our type is going to be a string. So you can pass if it's a type of file. Oh, sorry, what's this? Let me import this from React. Form event from React. Our type is going to be, is it of type string? Yeah, of course. File, text, password, color, range, date. Oh, I don't know anyone again. Them. All right, let's move on. Placeholder. Placeholder is always a string. Okay, enter your password, enter your email address, kind of stuff. Then the handle change is obviously a function, and it's a form event, and it is HTML input, and it's going to return type of void. Then the class name is obviously a string. Now, if you look at this one, this is a dynamic key, which is standing for our rest here. Whatever you pass in, we don't care. We are just going to take it as key string here. And we also say that it is unknown because we don't know. You might say, okay, I want to pass in disabled to your input. You want to disable the input field. We don't care. You might want to pass in, what else can we pass in input field? Oh, I guess I need to read more on input field. All right, then. Let's go back here and use it. So first of all, I want to, anything that you pass, I'm going to pass in everything in this dot rest. I'm spreading it everything. Every other thing that you pass into this input field, I don't care. I'm going to spread it there. Now, so the things that I care about, the input type is of the type that you pass. So any type that you pass. Now, we can actually default it to say, oh, if there is no type, be of this, but I'm not going to do that. You can do that and simply say, if there is type, pass the type. If there's no type, be of type text or whatever, but I'm not doing that. Then we have our placeholder. So the input placeholder is going to be the placeholder that you pass yourself. The handle change, no, not handle change. The onSubmit function, is it onSubmit? No, onChange. The onChange function that you call when you type something is changing is going to be of handle change. And then what else we have? The class name, just like we did, is going to be a template string. Whatever class name you pass, And we can also pass our own class name. So you can still pass your own classes here if you want. But I don't want to start anything right now. The user or whoever is going to call this component, okay, let's pretend that you're building this for a library and you want people to reuse your input component. So that's kind of what I'm doing here right now. But it's not a library, it's internal. We are using it ourselves. Let's create the last component that we need right now, which is the button component. So I'm going to say button.tsx. All right, here we're going to say export const button. I will come back to that. And this is simply going to return a button, just like the rest of them. Simple button, but we are just making it powerful. So what are we accepting? We're going to accept a title that is like, what do you want to show in between the button? So I'm going to pass in a handle click, which is simply what function should we call on click. We're going to pass in a type. What is the type of the button? Just like we did for our empty tree, what type is it? We're also going to pass in what's it called? Class names. So this time around, whatever it be that you want to style it as. So we are going to put in their types, and we say that the title is a string, the handle click is void, it's just a function, and it's optional. So our button does not have to have a click event, it's optional. So that's why you see this, let me zoom in a bit. You see this quotation here, it's optional. Now our class name is not optional, you have to style something. Now our type is also optional. We made the type optional, but the type can only be type of button or type of submit or type of reset. So these are the only type that we acknowledge. And then we also did the same thing that we did for, let me also pass that, I forgot to do that, rest for the input field. So we are accepting any other thing that you pass to the button, and we are saying dynamic key. Let me say, oh, wait, it's unknown because we don't know what you're passing. And we're just going to also do that. We spread it here, rest, and then we use the ones that we actually care about. So we have the on click, which is going to be handle click. So if you don't pass anything, it's just going to be undefined. We can also make sure to check if there's handle click before we do this, but I will leave this so that you can optimize this as much as you want. Then the button is going to be of type what? So I'm going to say type. Now for this, we are going to check. We're going to see if there is type, then it's going to be whatever that type is. But if there is no type, it's going to type of button. So that is that. If there's no type, it's just going to type button. But if there's a type, fine, we use that. Then there is a class name, which is simply we have to pass our template string so that we can put any styling we want ourselves. Then we say class names. Then in between the button tags, we are going to pass in the title. So with this now, we are done with the three components that we have created: the button, the input, and the form. And we can reuse them anywhere we like in our application. Now let's go to the index and export all of them. So I'm going to say export button, input, and form. And now we have all this exported from our components. So let's go back to the index page for our landing page. So let's go to the pages/landing. Let's click it, and this is where we are going to use it. So let's go back to the div here, this first div that will contain everything that we need. Let's go in there. Let's create a form. So I'm going to say form. We are going to use our form components. Say form. So we are importing that from our form components. Now, one thing you should know is that with React Router DOM 6, you can actually handle form events, you can handle data fetching, but I'm not going to do any of that in this video. What I'm using them for is enough for what I want to showcase in this video. I'm going to close this. So now if you can see our form has an error marked on it because it needs some prop. It needs some prop from us. So let's pass in some props. Oh, what did I click? Go back here. Okay, let's pass in some props. So we are passing a two prop right now, the class name, which is the styling that I want to give to my form, which is I want it to be flex. There's display flex. Items is centered, align item center, justify content space, justify content center, I guess, not space. Width is full, which is 100%, height is 100%, a padding of 10, that is padding top, padding bottom, padding right, padding left, 10, and I have an unsubmit, which is handle submit that I don't have defined anywhere. So let's define that. So it's a const unsubmit, is it unsubmit? Handle submit. For now, it's just going to be nothing, and it's going to take E, and E is going to be a form event, just like we did earlier. It's going to be a form event coming from React. It's going to be HTML form element, Yeah, and that is that. So what else is it crying that we need to put? What else do we need? We need to pass in a React node. So we need to pass in something in between this form here. We need to pass something here. And that thing is going to be our input. So we have our input. Let's import that from /components. So now our input is crying that, oh, we need to pass something, but we need two inputs, right? And a button. Let's feed that in. Now I've added two inputs, and we're passing the name, the email. Now this, remember in our input components, we don't have anything like name. If you look at our prop here, we don't have anything like name. But that name is going to come from here, the rest. Dot rest that we spread, this spread operator here. Any other thing that we pass, like I mentioned earlier, because of this, it's just going to get added here. So we have where is it? This name we don't have it, but we gave it a name. The rest of them, I think we have them defined. We say the type is of text, and then handle change. The same thing. This one, the name is password, the type is password, and because of this type that we have given to them, they will show differently. Then we have our Tailwind classes. We say the background should be zinc 900, padding top of 1, padding top and bottom 1, padding left and right 4, width of full, shadow of extra large. And then we have a placeholder. We want the placeholder text to be small. And on hover, we want to change the background color to be zinc of 800 and the cursor to be pointer, focus, outline. No, when you focus on it, we don't want any outline. And we want the cursor to be pointer. The styling for the input is the same for the second input, so we don't need to worry about that. Before I create this handle state that is crying here that we don't have anything defined as handle state, let's add, I think we have something here. Yeah, we have this footy. Let's add this. So let's go here and let's add footy. So footy is just a h2. So footy is just a h2, and then it has a class name. This is normal HTML. Our text are orange, which is the font color we want to use. Font size, I think font weight, I guess, is extra bold. Font size is extra large. Underline. So once an underline below, and then we have an underline offset, which is going to push the line a bit further from the input field of offset -8, and then it simply has the text of footy. Let's quickly define this handle state here. So let's go below the form and let's say const handle state, and it's going to take input e, which is going to form event of HTML input element, and for now it's going to do nothing. Yeah, just like the other one. And then what else do we have that is missing? We have a button. So first of all, let's quickly install the import the button. Let's go back here and let's say button, because everything is coming from /components. Then let's go down and let's use the button. So the button is wrapped in a div. Let me close this up. Button is wrapped in a div. It has a class name of width of 100%. But when we are on a medium screen going up, we want the width to be 50%. So we want to take half. But if on a small screen, we want it to take the whole width. Margin of auto, so that when we're on a medium screen, it's center. That is what this does. Margin of auto. It is display flex. Flex direction is column. I don't know why we need that. Then the gap is 2. Yeah, there's no other elements here, but yeah. Okay, the title of the button is login, and the class name, which is the styling for the button itself, is background should be orange, the text should be white. When we hover on it, we want the background to be the orange. So I think it's either increasing. Yeah, I think it's increasing because the 600 is an increment. Then we have a padding top and bottom of 1, padding left and right of 6, and a width of full. Take up the whole width. And we said that the type of the button is submit. So the type of the button is submit. One other thing I need to do, which I think I'm forgetting, is to wrap everything inside the form in a div itself. So every of these things in a div. I want to make sure that it stays in the middle, because this parent div here is, and then the form itself is taking up the whole, the whole space. If we go back here, where is it? Here. You see how it's layered. Now this is not what I want. This is not what I want, and it's taking up the whole thing. So I want to, put it in a div and then make it flex direction of column so that everything is downward, stacked on each other vertically, not this horizontal like this. So let's go fix that. So I'm going to have a div. Now I have this div here, which simply has a class name of flex. Flex direction is column, gap is 2, width is full, but on a large screen, the width is simply 50%. So I'm going to copy everything right from the H2 to the button. So the button here, and I'll paste it right inside this div. So if I save now, we should have what we want. Let's take a look at the browser, and boom, we have what we want. Look at when we hover on it, the background changes to 800, I guess. The original background is zinc-900. Once we hover, it changes to 800. And then for the button, once we also hover, it changes to orange dash, I think 600. When we go out, it's orange dash 500. And then look at footy here, and then look at the underline and the little offset below it, the line, a little bit of offset here, and see how our input component works very, very fine. We pass in a type, and then we pass in the placeholder, which is email, and pass in the type and the placeholder of password. So if I type here, it should be hidden because I said type is password, or here type is email, and it goes like that. So very, very easy. We are now reusing this component, and everything just works fine here. Okay, so what is left for us to do? What is left for us to do now is to connect to our backend, so that when you click on this login button, we either log you in or register you and log you in. So how do we intend to do that?